Well, I would say that this is an appropriate background to represent how happy I am right now. And I'm also wearing the right shirt, too. In case you've been living under a rock, the new Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens trailer came out this week, and oh my god. Like, any doubts I had about this movie, and I did have my fair share of doubts, not that I was expecting it to be terrible, but I was kind of like, we'll see. I've been hurt before. So it's kind of like what I talked about with Godzilla last year, where I was like, look, I've been hurt before. So let's keep our expectations reasonable. But quite honestly, everything I've seen out of this movie so far has given me plenty of things to feel good about. It was like, okay, I'm feeling pretty good about this. I feel very hopeful about the final product, and that trailer was just so amazing. From the shots that they used to, I mean, that landscape shot of what I'm assuming is Tatooine, though I guess it could be another desert planet, with this wrecked Star Destroyer in the background looked incredible. I mean, that was jaw-dropping, and it really did remind me of the opening to A New Hope, where the Star Destroyer flies overhead. It just looks so massive that it just engulfs the entire screen. It was like kind of a callback to that. And I was like, whoa, that's pretty awesome. And just everything else, from the music to the right bit of a nostalgia with the Darth Vader helmet and showing brief glimpses of Luke and Leia. And I'm assuming that was Luke and Leia, even though we didn't see their faces. That was Leia taking the lightsaber, which I believe is Anakin's old lightsaber. So that'll be interesting to see how they get around that. If I'm right, it'll be interesting to see how that lightsaber got all the way from Cloud City to wherever the hell they are right now. But I'm assuming that was also Luke kneeling by R2-D2, and just all the feels. So many feels. I mean, I've talked to so many men that saw this movie, grown-ass men, saying that this movie trailer made them cry. And it was just such a wonderful nostalgia rush, and it's really... I can't help but compare it to the Episode 1 trailers that came out way back in the day. And I'm not... I don't passionately hate the prequels like a lot of other people do. They are heavily flawed, and there are plenty of problems with them, namely the acting in a lot of cases. That's kind of the major problem. Also Jar Jar, and also Episode 1 is, in the grand scheme of things, Episode 1 is actually kind of pointless if you think about it. But I could sit here all day and list things that are wrong with the prequels, but at the end of the day, I've always felt like 4, 5, and 6 was the main story, and nothing the prequels could do could ruin that for me. So, and even when Episode 1 was coming out, and all the hype was starting, and the posters and the movie trailers were coming out, I was so against that movie. So when I finally saw it, I was one of the few people that was like, it wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. Everybody else was like either in denial, or they were disappointed, or they hated it, or whatever. And I was just kind of like, some people didn't know how to react to it at first. They were like, it was okay-ish, I kind of guess. I was like, it's not as bad as I thought it would be, because my expectations were super low. But going back to what the trailers were like back then, I remember seeing the trailers for Episode 1, and the first thought that popped into my head was that it doesn't look like Star Wars. It's like, this doesn't look like Star Wars at all. It looked like something out of a completely different universe. I'm like, yeah, I see Yoda, and yeah, I see lightsabers, but it just looked, the way the world looked and everything, from like the very like clean-looking ships, it looked like almost utopian. And it didn't have that lived-in, dirty, grungy, industrial feel that the original Star Wars trilogy had. And I guess Lucas's, to be fair, I understand the mindset there is that he wants to show how the Empire ultimately took over and ruined what was a better society or whatever. So I understand that mindset of presenting it that way. But those early trailers for Episode 1, I just looked at them and I was like, they don't look like Star Wars, like, at all. It looks like a completely different film series. With this trailer right here... And actually, I'll even reference Attack of the Clones. I remember seeing the first teaser for Episode 2, and you had the Darth Vader breathing over, put over shots of the movie. And I was like, yeah, that's Darth Vader's breathing, but that's the only thing in this that reminds me of Star Wars. Everything else looks like, it doesn't, like I said, it just doesn't look like Star Wars. And Episode 3 was better. I mean, Episode 3 was the most obviously because it was the bridge from the prequels to the original trilogy. But that one looked the most like Star Wars, both in the advertising and in the actual movie itself. But for the most part, the prequels, like, it feels like it has its own identity, and it feels separate from the original trilogy. This trailer right here, especially this Episode 7 trailer, looked like Star Wars to me. And I was like, oh my god. And I'll be completely honest here. I mentioned that grown men have admitted to crying over this trailer. I'll admit, tears welled up in my eyes when I was watching this trailer. Just everything from the music to the way it looked. And keep in mind, this is before Han Solo and Chewbacca popped up, which turned me into like a fucking 5-year-old all over again. I marked the fuck out for that. But, yeah, I had like tears welling up in my eyes. I'm like, oh my god, it's like Star Wars is really back. It's really, really back. And, so I'll give J.J. Abrams a ton of credit. It's so far so good, definitely. Again, we still have to see how the film turns out, but my hope for it like skyrocketed after seeing this trailer. That's one of the best trailers I've seen in a long time. And I'll be honest, it's a perfect trailer because it entices you to go see the movie. I still have no idea what the story is. And I like that. I like not knowing. I like that they're keeping stuff from us and they're not trying to spoil everything. Actually, Age of Ultron, I hear they've been leaking clips and stuff on like Marvel and Disney have been showing clips online and stuff, and I've been avoiding them like the plague. It's like, look, guys, you already got my money. I mean, you're going to get my money. It's, I'm going to go see Age of Ultron. You don't need to keep showing me stuff. I don't want to have the whole movie spoiled for me before I go see it. And that's a major problem with trailers today, is that they show way too much. I mean, I saw the trailers to the remake for Carrie, and the thing that really struck me about it is that they show Carrie using all of her powers and everything, and I just kind of chuckled because originally, when the original movie came out back in the 70s, that was a surprise that she had like psychic powers and stuff. That was not like a known thing. So it was kind of like something that I don't want to say it came out of left field, but the general moviegoers weren't aware that that's what the story was going to turn into. So I just find it funny that back in the 70s it was a complete and utter surprise, and then you get into the remake and it's like, they basically showed you the whole movie in the trailer, so why go see it? And of course the original is out there, just go see the original. But in any case, that's a major problem with trailers today, is that they just spoil way too much. But with these Star Wars trailers, they've done an amazing job. They've only had 2 of them, but they've done an incredible job of keeping the right amount of stuff hidden while also enticing us to see the movie. And my excitement for this movie jumped up tenfold after seeing that trailer. So here's hoping it delivers. Here's fingers crossed, because Star Wars is very important to me. And I honestly cannot recollect the first time I saw the Star Wars trilogy, the originals, because I honestly don't remember a point in my life where I didn't know what Star Wars was. I mean, that's how ingrained it is in my life, to where it's like, I don't remember a time where I didn't know what Star Wars was. So that's the type of fan I am going into this movie. And when I heard they were making a sequel trilogy, I was just kind of like, I don't know. I'd rather just have the original unaltered trilogy released on DVD and Blu-ray. That'd be nice, but I don't think we're ever going to get that because George Lucas is evil. But but whatever. I'd rather have that. But the more and more I've seen with this new movie, I'm really excited for it. So once again, here's hoping, but it's looking pretty good. Now I will also say the Batman Superman trailer. That's a movie that I'm very, like, my expectations for that movie are truthfully very low. Very, very low. Because it just looks like they're trying to cram as much shit as they can into this. And it's like they're trying to mirror the success of Marvel without putting in the same type of work. I mean, when I heard that, like, fucking Aquaman and all these other guys might pop up in the film at some point, I'm like, no, it should just be Batman and Superman. That's what we want. I mean, why is Wonder Woman even in this? I was like, okay, you're finally giving us Wonder Woman in a movie, and you're putting it in the movie that she shouldn't be in. She should be in her own movie, which apparently that film's already in production hell, which, yeah, of course it is. So my expectations for Batman and Superman have been very low. And I saw this new trailer, and I'm like, okay, it looks pretty interesting. All right, I'm not sold yet, but it looks like they're trying some stuff to make it work. It looked very Frank Miller-ish, and by Frank Miller-ish, I mean good old Frank Miller, not crazy, I've lost my mind and every bit of talent I ever had Frank Miller. No, it was like, this looks like Dark Knight Returns was a major inspiration for it, and just a lot of the images that they had, and people are already quoting the trailer, which is like, they've already gotten some pretty memorable quotes out of it, which is pretty remarkable. So, okay, well, I'm going to see it anyway, just because it's Batman and Superman, but I was like, okay, this is literally the first thing I've seen from this movie that made me kind of go, all right, maybe they've got something here. I don't know. I don't want to say that, it's a done deal and they're going to do a good job, but that was the first thing I've seen that gave me even a little bit of hope. And I have to say, I did like the new Batman voice, the kind of mechanized, disguised Batman voice, which they really did have to change it after the whole Bale thing, because as much as I love The Dark Knight, and I do like Batman Begins and The Dark Knight Rises, even though they are heavily flawed, but as much as I love The Dark Knight and everything, that Batman voice is ridiculous. I'm sorry. And yeah, I mean, that voice was just absurd, but so anything to kind of change it, I was like, okay, it kind of makes sense that he would disguise his voice that way, because Bruce Wayne is theoretically a public figure that people know his image and his voice and everything else. So to go to that extreme to disguise his voice, it makes sense. And of course, Bruce Wayne would have that level of technology. So I kind of buy it. I know some people were down on it, but yeah, well, again, we'll see how that turns out. The trailer was good. It was definitely better than I would have expected. So again, here's hoping that movie turns out well. But yeah, a lot of nerd stuff to get excited about. That was pretty cool. But this is a predominantly pro wrestling channel, so I've got to talk some pro wrestling here. And two things I definitely wanted to cover, especially after this week. Once again, I do have to say, I thought NXT put on a pretty good show this week. It was mostly squash matches, but I like squash matches because they're character builders. And I walked away from that, ooh, Dana Brooke, she looks tough. And ooh, Baron Corbin, he's still killing people. I wonder if they're ever going to have him interact. Like, the value of having somebody like a Baron Corbin who wins all the time and squashes people is that when he eventually does work with somebody who's like a name, like a Sami Zayn or a Kevin Owens or something like that, it makes people go, ooh, because Baron Corbin's been a killer. I mean, that was how they booked Ryback initially. And it worked, because they gave him a bunch of squash matches. His whole chant and shtick got over, and then they had him go up against CM Punk, and people were like, ooh, that's cool. I still think Corbin's a little green, and hopefully he improves to get to a more presentable state, but there is value to having him. I also like Enzo and Cass. They're kind of... My fear is that Enzo and Cass are going to turn into the new version of the New Age Outlaws, where we will eventually get sick of... we will get sick of their whole shtick, and it'll just wear itself after a while. But for right now, I think they're doing great, and they actually do change it up a little bit. It's not just reciting the same phrases over and over again, which they do have their phrases, but they also like change up bits and pieces of it every now and then. Also, their backstage segments are really funny. I wish they'd do more backstage stuff with them, because those bits tend to be really funny. But yeah, so NXT overall was a good show, and I thought the Zayn Rhino main event was really good, and I really did enjoy that match. So it was a nice main event on a show that was mostly squash matches. So overall, just a solidly booked episode. TNA did their tag team tournament this week with the new champions being determined, and it was overall okay. It was solid. The Ultimate X, my main complaint against it is that so many of those guys that were in the match, like EC3 and Bobby Roode and the Hardys and a couple of other guys, don't know, they can't use the Ultimate X. So my question is, why would you book an Ultimate X match with so many guys that can't really utilize the Ultimate X? I mean, ultimately the finish came down to who got the ladder first. I'm like, well, why didn't you just make it a ladder match? And haven't they said in the past that the ladder is like disrespectful of the Ultimate X? And wasn't that a rule initially, that ladders were not allowed and that it wouldn't count if you got the belt down that way? I don't know. Whatever. But other than that, I thought like the basic structure of the show was okay. And they're doing a knockout show next week, which that could be good. I mean, it could be interesting. It's worth checking out at least. At least it's something different. I'll give TNA credit for trying to showcase, like, okay, our tag team division, they get the spotlight this week. The Knockouts get the spotlight once in a while. And the X Division, at least for Destination X, they tend to give the X Division spotlight, although they seem to not do that the rest of the year. But, it is nice to change it up once in a while. It's not just the world title main eventers in the main event of every single TV show. And I think that makes it a little bit better. And actually, building off of that, I thought Lucha Underground this week, once again, terrific show. Absolutely great show. And, the Trios tournament, I think, is going very well. It does kind of have those problems that I talk about with tag team wrestling, where they just turn into the wild free-for-alls or whatever. But again, there is the rule in Lucha Libre that if you fall outside the ring, another person from your team gets to jump in, and I don't think they've mentioned that in Lucha Underground, but I'm going to assume that's a rule just so it's easier for me to accept the insanity of it all. And they do a slightly better job of tagging in and out and keeping track of who's legal and who's not and everything. So, okay, I mean, I can go along with it, but the matches are also fun, and I think it's, like I said, it's an interesting new thing that no other American promotion is doing. You're getting your tag team wrestling, but you're getting it in a slightly different way that no other U.S. promotion is really doing. So I think it's cool, and I think it's a lot of fun. And the finals are next week, so that should be really good. But the main event of the show this week was Drago versus Aerostar in the finals of their Best of 5 series. And the real star of the whole thing, first of all, the match was great, and Drago ended up winning, which was cool. But the real star of the episode and during this main event was Dario Cueto. And I wanted to come on here, and this was my one of my big topics, wrestling topics anyway, for this video. Dario Cueto, who, if you don't know, he's an actor that they hired to play the promoter of Lucha Underground. He owns the temple and he runs the promotion, and that's the character he plays on the show. And he's basically doing his own take on the evil boss gimmick, which, as I've said before, is tired and stale, but he's found a way to make it work. And I'll go this far. He's probably the best non-wrestling character in the business right now. The only other one I would put in his league is Paul Heyman. And Paul Heyman has been around forever, so of course we all know how great Paul Heyman is, but literally the only other one I can think of that would be like up on that upper echelon of the managers, promoters, all sorts of characters like that, I think it's Paul Heyman and Dario Cueto. They are by far the two best and add so much to their shows. I mean, Brock Lesnar would not be as good without Paul Heyman, and we all know that. Paul Heyman adds so much to Lesnar's overall package. And Dario, to me, quite honestly, he's kind of the backbone of Lucha Underground, and one of the main reasons that show works as well as it does. What he adds is that the guy, and of course, like I said, they hired an actor. He is a very good actor. Like, he comes across so naturally in those segments that they do. And really, when I first started watching Lucha Underground, and, they did all those, like, kind of cinematic TV show type of what we would call backstage segments, when they were producing and presenting the show in that fashion, that's kind of hard for wrestling fans to accept right away because it's so vastly different from what we're used to seeing in WWE and TNA and WCW and ECW and everything else. It's like no other wrestling show is doing that. It's a little jarring for some wrestling fans, but what made it work for me right off the bat, Dario is such a good actor that they work. That he sucks you in and makes you believe that everything he's saying, all the conversations and all of that other stuff is believable, and I think his performance really helps that tremendously. And I'll throw Conan up there too. I think Conan's really good in those segments as well, and really make up for the fact that most of the wrestlers don't talk. Drago does not talk. Aerostar did not talk. There were 2 segments on this week's show where Dario went up to them. He went up to Aerostar and he went up to Drago individually to pump them up for the main event. It's like, you need to come through tonight because this is our big match or whatever. And blah, 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 all that stuff. It's all Dario doing the talking, and it's really, he really helps make up for the fact that a lot of their guys don't talk. Like I said, Drago, Aerostar, a lot of them don't speak English. Prince Puma is their champion, has not said one word since he's been on the show. So having Conan and Dario there to kind of fill in those blanks and really come across so naturally, I think adds a tremendous bit of credibility to the show, and I think that really helps out and really sells the format of the show and makes it more acceptable. But another thing that Dario does is that him as this evil boss character really kind of redefines the role, and like I said, it's a role that I've kind of been sick of over the last, when we got into that period where it was like Johnny Ace and Vicky Guerrero, and they were running the shows, and they acted like fucking 8-year-olds running a wrestling promotion. I was like, they're annoying, it's stupid, it's an old hat, I don't like it, please just stop doing it. Even, I'll throw Vince McMahon in there as well, because Vince went from being like this controlled, conservative, control freak that wanted to present his company in the way it wanted to be presented, which made him a natural foil for Stone Cold Steve Austin. He went from being that to kind of being this crazy lunatic cartoon character that would make Mr. Spacely from the Jetsons blush. And it got to a point with Vince where I was like, okay, how the fuck is he still in charge of this company? No board of directors would allow this. I mean, he's just such a goddamn lunatic. How has he not been hit with, like, sexual harassment lawsuits and, all sorts of different kind of lawsuits, unsafe working environment, and all sorts of weird shit. I mean, this would never be allowed to fly. He's like I said, it's like a goddamn child running a company. It's just ridiculous. But with Dario, I think why he works so well, again, not only because he's such a good actor and he really sells everything so well, but he also, his motivation first is the success of his company and to drive up interest for his company. It's not straight up, ooh, I have to screw over the baby faces because I'm a heel, so I have to hate the baby faces, and I have to help the heels because I'm a heel, so I have to side with the heels. Because they did that a lot with like Vicky Guerrero and Johnny Ace, and a lot of the times it really didn't make sense why. Like, I still don't know why Johnny Ace wanted to fuck over Zack Ryder. Like, what sense does that make? That it's like, oh, the fans like you, so I have to shit on you because I'm a bad guy. And that's all the logic there is. Him hating Punk makes sense because Punk was the rebel that walked out with the belt and, ran him down and shat on him and did all that other stuff. So that makes sense. Him feuding with John Cena, their big moneymaker and their biggest corporate shill on the roster, makes no sense to me. But with Dario, it's not about playing favorites. It's about, the success of his company. And he believes that the success of his company comes from, like, violence, and so he puts people in situations that would make the show as violent and as crazy as possible. He'll play people against each other to make matches more interesting, which is what he did with Drago and Aerostar. He tried to take two friends and turn them against each other to generate interest in their matches. He brought in the mini guy. I forget his name. I'm sorry. They brought in one of the minis, and I'm sorry, I forget his name, and one other guy, Pimpinella Scarletta, I think his name was. I brought them in, and he pretty much admitted, I brought them in just so they would be lunch meat to the monsters, and they would get destroyed, and that's really the only reason I brought them in, and unfortunately they actually got over and, started winning matches, and that ticked him off, because he thought it was like an embarrassment that, this realm of violence that he tries to create would be sullied by having those type of characters running around. All sorts of stuff like that, where his motivations feel believable. He comes across so like great as this slimy, sleazy businessman that's thinking money first, and then and he doesn't care about anything else other than that. And because of that, I kind of buy him. I buy him more than most other evil boss characters that have come up in the last few years. I'm trying to think of other examples. Watch the Drago Aerostar match on this week's show, and he was like, every time it looked like they were killing each other, he would just had this big Grinch-like smile on his face. He's like, yeah, this is what I like to see. I like to see people hurt themselves and all this other stuff. So, like I said, Dario adds so much to the overall Lucha Underground show, and I think anybody that's willing to check out Lucha Underground, definitely watch it for Dario, because he is probably the MVP of the show and really makes it for me anyway. So, in addition to all the great characters and all the great wrestlers that they have, and it seems like every week Lucha Underground has at least one match that really stands out. It's like, wow, that really made the show worth watching. And this week they had two. I would say the Trios match and the Drago Aerostar match, and even the three-way they did in between was solid. So, yeah, Lucha Underground, they're still the best wrestling show week to week. As far as like weekly wrestling, episodic wrestling television, I think Lucha Underground's the best one right now. So again, I recommend it. Check it out. But the other major topic I wanted to talk about, and it goes into a lot of the things that I like to talk about in terms of in-ring psychology and making matches make sense and making the stories of the match make sense. And I'm going to reference Stone Cold Steve Austin's podcast that came out this week, right after Raw, where he was critical of the Dolph Ziggler-Adrian Neville match that happened this weekend. I enjoyed that match. I stand by my positive review of that match, so I'm not going to say it's like, oh, Austin's right. It's a completely shitty dog shit match, and he didn't even really say that. But Austin was critical of Dolph Ziggler using that jumping DDT that he uses, and that not being the finish of the match, because he felt that looked more impressive than the zigzag, and it almost felt anticlimactic because of that. And really, I mean, Austin's right. Austin is absolutely right, and it's not just this one case. It's not just this one match. I'll expand on it. This is a problem that goes to almost all of professional wrestling in the modern era, where I cannot tell you, and it's, to be honest, it is more prevalent in the WWE because their matches on TV every week are so formulaic, but I cannot tell you how many guys have moves, and I know I've talked about this before. They have all these moves that they do every single match, they get kicked out of all the time, they never beat anybody with them, so I have to ask, who cares? And I could sit here all day and list those moves. Wade Barrett, he only beats people with the bullhammer. But every match he does the Winds of Change, he does Wasteland, he might do one other move that he has, but everybody always kicks out of them, so to be honest, it's not a big deal when people kick out of them, and it hurts the drama of the match, and that's where it betrays the psychology of the match. I should be thinking, when a big move is hit, I should be thinking, oh my god, it might be over, because you want to talk about that type of psychology, go back and watch Ricky Steamboat and Randy Savage from WrestleMania 3. That match is known for having so many quick kickouts and so many roll-up pin attempts and all that other stuff, and the crowd was just going nuts for it, and unfortunately, I think the sands of time have kind of erased why that worked as well as it did. Because I think some people look at it today, it's like, what, they're kicking out of roll-ups. What's the big deal about that? And I was like, whoa, dude, back then, any one of those roll-ups could have been the finish, and that's why the crowd was on their feet throughout the last, 8 minutes of that match, where it was because they did not know when the finish was going to come. I remember there was one part where it looked like Ricky got the pin, and they popped, and he didn't get the pin, because they were just like, I can't believe that this match hasn't ended yet with all these big moves and all these pin attempts and everything. And that's the type of psychology that you need in a wrestling match. It's not always just working over a body part and causing an injury or whatever. It can be about, you gotta, get people to invest in what they're seeing and to fully accept, oh my god, the finish could come at this moment, or it could come at that moment, or oh my god, it might be over here. But unfortunately, you have all these guys with all these big moves that they never win with. And again, I've talked about this before. Luke Harper has that sit-out powerbomb that looks great. He never beats anybody with it. Dolph Ziggler has that jumping DDT that Austin talked about. He's got a super kick. He's got top rope X Factor / Facebuster. I've never seen him beat anybody with that. He might have one or two others. Oh, he has the Famouser. Never beats anybody with that. And he does all these big moves, and it's like he never wins with any of them except for the zigzag. And it really hurts his matches, I think, because that we've been conditioned to think that people are going to kick out of every single one of those moves. And I like Dolph Ziggler. I'm using guys that I like as examples here to show a fundamental flaw that's going on in pro wrestling in general right now. I mean, people have been talking about that springboard stunner that Cena does, which looks ugly as sin, but whatever, we'll let it go. But he's used it twice now, I think, and he hasn't beat anybody with it. So it's kind of like, okay, well, I mean, the Barrett match this week, he used it to set up for the AA, I think, if memory serves me. He didn't, Barrett didn't kick out of it. He just kind of hit the stunner and then hit the AA for the win, when he probably should have just beat him with the stunner. But just, again, to add credibility to that move. But, I think my phone's going off. Wait a minute. I'll be right back. Sorry about that. Return that call later. Anyway, there are a lot of guys that do that. Lots of guys. God, even Adrian Neville, since he came up, I mean, that reverse Frankensteiner he does, he did it in the Sami Zayn match, and he doesn't do it every match. I'll even throw Cena's top rope leg drop in there as well. It's like, yeah, it's a good thing to break out for special occasions, except I've never seen you beat anybody with it. Never. I've seen Neville do it a couple of times, and I was like, I've never seen him beat anybody with it, and that's a great finisher. That would be a great move, and to me, if you... I mean, yeah, everybody has that one, like, truly trademark finisher that they use. But if you beat guys with, like, and I'll keep using Barrett as an... Actually, let's create a hypothetical situation here. Let's say Daniel Bryan's the Intercontinental Champion, and let's say Wade Barrett is being built up to ultimately face him down the road. Let's say Barrett goes on a 3-month run where he wins with the Winds of Change, he wins with Wasteland, and he wins with the Bullhammer at interchangeable points. Like 1 week he'll win with the Bullhammer, 1 week he'll win with Winds of Change. And this, again, this is something where jobbers would really help out, I think, and throwing squash matches back out there. I think that would really help fix some of those problems. But let's say he goes on a 3-month run where he wins. Every match he wins, he does it with the Winds of Change or Wasteland or the Bullhammer, any one of those. Then he finally gets that match with Daniel Bryan. Now, during the match, let's say Barrett hits Winds of Change and Bryan kicks out. Let's say he hits Wasteland and Bryan kicks out. Then let's say Bryan finally falls to the Bullhammer. It makes Daniel Bryan look awesome that he kicked out of 2 moves that Barrett has been beating people with for weeks and months. And it makes the Bullhammer look even stronger and makes it look like the true finisher because that's what ultimately took Bryan down. Now, let's take the hypothetical situation away and let's look at what's really going on. If they do that match next week, Bryan's going to kick out of the Winds of Change, he's going to kick out of the Wasteland, and it will mean nothing. All it means is that Daniel Bryan is on par with everybody else, and those moves are meaningless. And so it doesn't really do anything to do that. And that's where, we got to take a few steps back and work into creating drama again and making moves really mean something. Because to me, any reasonably impactful move, whether it be a top rope move or a slam or any kind of big strike or something, could potentially end a match. And I think fans should be conditioned to think that. And I'll applaud TNA again. When they did the Angle Lashley Eric Young match from last week, I think it was, they did that, and it was the finish of that match was Angle hit the moonsault on Lashley's legs and then pinned him, and he got the win. He didn't beat him with the Angle Slam or the ankle lock. He beat him with a big top rope move. And Lashley had gotten his legs injured throughout the match, so the finishing move that they used, which was the moonsault, was actually used to pinpoint the injury that had taken place throughout the match. So to me, that finish was better than using an angle slam or an ankle lock or any of the other finishers that were going on. It was straight up like, oh, well, that makes sense. And they used the big move to end the match, so I was perfectly fine with that. And I think we should go back to that type of thing being the standard rather than the exception. I think not every match needs to end with a finisher. Not every match needs to end with, not every match needs to be, a kick-out fest either, where guys are just kicking out of finishers left and right. That definitely doesn't need to be the case. But because that's something that I see far too much of. But again, it's about perfecting that psychology. And Austin is completely right when he talks about that, where you see all these big moves in matches every single week that nobody wins with. And Sheamus is another one. I remember for a while Sheamus was beating people with White Noise and the Irish Curse Backbreaker and a couple other moves, but lately, I'd say at least the last year or so, it's just been straight up like just the brogue kick, and that's it. And not every move has to set up a pinfall either. That's another thing. Again, talking about like the natural flow of the match and the psychology and everything, one of my favorite moves that AJ Styles does is the Pele. And the reason I love it is that they don't use it to set up a false finish. It's kind of AJ's little out of nowhere secret weapon that he uses, and every time he hits it, it shifts the momentum back in his favor. So it's like, for anybody who played Day of Reckoning, the old GameCube games, which I can't believe I just called GameCube games old. I mean, God, I really am getting old. But they had a function in those games called the momentum shift, where every wrestler had a move that would instantly like impact the momentum of the match and switch it back into their favors. And if AJ Styles was in that game, his momentum shift would be the Pele kick. And it's like, that's how, as a fan, that's how you know that AJ's coming back. And they don't use it to set up a 2 count or anything like that, but it's very effective at what it does, which is give AJ back the advantage so that he could ultimately win the match. So stuff like that is perfectly well. Like I said, not every move needs to be for a 2 count either. It could be used to set up another move, or it could be used to gain somebody the advantage, or something, anything. Like, there's room for creativity. It's not just straight up just doing the same formula every single week. So, I fully agree with Austin's criticism there. Not just for that one match, but for like just wrestling in general. And that's something I wish would change. And like I said, I have talked about that a lot before. I think I talked about it in my WrestleMania preview, actually. But in any case, I've rambled long enough. Hope you all enjoyed this video. Hope you all had a good weekend as well. I will be back sometime next week, and I'll have another video up, so it'll be fun. But for all you Star Wars fans out there, hope you're as happy as I am, because I'm just ecstatic right now. But thanks everybody for listening, and I will see you all later.